The Accident and Emergency Unit at Charlotte Maxeke Academic Hospital has officially reopened, but there won't be any walk-ins, we're told. This comes after almost over a year since, in fact, after a fire hit that facility, damaging its infrastructure. Will this partial reopening actually ease the pressure on nearby hospitals? That's our question today. And to unpack it, let's bring in Dr. Patricia Saffy, who is the emergency head at Helen Joseph Hospital, not too far from Charlotte Maxeke. Doc, it's great to have you on the program. Thank you so much indeed for making time. In fact, the health minister who visited Charlotte Maxeke yesterday said only 15 patients have so far been admitted to this now operational unit at that institution. How far do you reckon this will go?
Good morning and thank you for having me. It is very interesting comments about opening of the emergency departments, because emergency departments are there to treat the emergencies, which requires ambulances or patients with relatives who are very concerned about their health or from accidents to bring them into these departments. What it appears has happened yesterday at Charlotte is that they've given the certificate of compliance, which was needed from the Johannesburg City Council. So we are very grateful and hopeful that once we've got this compliance, in other words, the area is fire compliant and can be functional. It is not really functional at the moment, and definitely all the patients in the area of Charlotte who are extreme emergencies are still coming to Helen Joseph Hospital. We have been given no information or permission to start allowing those patients to go back to Charlotte Maxeke. So the patients are still coming to Helen via ambulance, via patient transport, or as walk-ins, which is what Charlotte should be offering their area.
Right.
And so we are still offering all of that to the patients of the drainage area around Charlotte, as well as the drainage area of Helen Joseph. So it's not open.
That's really interesting. If that's the case, what should we make of the remarks then by the health minister that 15 patients are at this unit?
So that was a plan of action for mental health care users. There is a ward in the area called 260, which has got beds to support acute crises of mental health care users. And they have moved 15 patients from the wards at Helen Joseph Hospital to that area, almost like a ward. It's not really the walk-in emergency area. It's a ward off that area where they are looking after those mental health care users with emergencies of mental health. And that has, if you can call it, relieved us from, in the Helen Joseph Emergency Unit, we've been looking after about 40 mental health care users on a daily basis. We've been able to move 15 patients out, which means we're still running between 25 and 30 healthcare users with emergencies on a daily basis. Given that we've got a 4-bedded mental health care user area in our emergency department at Helen Joseph, we are still in a critical condition of mental health care users. That is what the 15 patients means. It is not any other medical or surgical or trauma patients that are going to Charlotte at this stage.
Important info that. So, Doc, help us better understand what's really going on here. If yesterday was just a matter of the certificate of compliance being given to this department, what work effectively can't Charlotte Maxeke still do, or still not do, I beg your pardon, more than a year after that fire?
Sorry. So what needs to be done, as far as I understand, because Charlotte doctors are not discussing this directly with us and we're not getting direct information, is that the CT scanner in the area of the ED is not up and running. And until the CT scanner of that area is up and running, the ED doctors, both the trauma doctors and the general medical and surgical doctors who work in the area, will not open the area because they feel that they can't treat their patients adequately without a functional 24-hour CT scanner.
Of course.
As far as I know, that is the last step before they actually open. But we've been praying for last steps since May last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, from your knowledge, what will it take to get the scanner? I mean, is it just a matter of procuring the equipment?
Yes, as far as I know, the equipment is supposed to be procured to fix it. Unfortunately, it was vandalized when we were supposed to reopen in February, which is really, really sad for the whole community of Southern Gauteng, because somebody actually damaged that scanner. They didn't steal things, they just damaged it. So that's vandalism. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, pure evil, because people have definitely died from the overload in one hospital when it's trying to look after two hospitals' loads. And so whoever vandalized that equipment, for whatever reason they vandalized that equipment, it has put a huge strain on all doctors, nurses, and patients, and has caused death of patients because of that. Now, the Charlotte Maxeke people would have had to revamp that whole CT scanner. And as far as I'm aware, that process is busy being done, but it's not fully functional yet. So until it becomes fully functional, Helen Joseph and other surrounding hospitals, for example, Edenvale, South Rand, are still taking the load, and the Charlotte where they're supposed to support us, especially with severe emergencies, especially with medical, surgical, and trauma severe emergencies. That is not happening until that CT scanner is working.
Really troubling that. Given how important that scanner is and how it was damaged, would it be reasonable to suspect some kind of sabotage?
Yes, I'm sure it was sabotage. I mean, I don't think anyone has been able to prove it yet, but why would somebody walk into a hospital and start cutting wires and damaging things on a CT scanner for no rhyme or reason?
Sure. Let's speak about the impact this has all had on the emergency unit that you lead. I mean, you've touched on it at various points of our discussion already, but I can imagine, for one, as you've pointed out, there's been a direct link between Charlotte Maxeke not being fully operational and there being a loss of life because of the pressure that other institutions have felt.
No, that is so, and I mean, that is obviously the worst part of it. There is loss of life. But the morbidities, the problems, the frustration, the anger, the burnout of staff and patients is terrible. I mean, we sit, last night, for example, there were 31 unseen patients in one area of the ED waiting to be seen, where the international criteria is supposed to be you should be seen within 4 hours if you're a stable patient, and within 3 to 4 minutes if you're a extremely ill, unstable patient. The stable patients then sit for 12 to 16 hours because there's so many unstable patients that the doctors can't leave the unstable patients to see the stable patients, because otherwise the unstable patient will die. And there is not enough staff to see those patients, even the unstable patients. Over this weekend, we had over 20 extremely unstable patients, we call them P1 patients, in our P1 resuscitation area, which is a 7-bedded area. It means 7 beds, 7 oxygen points, and 7 monitors. If you've got that's a 300% capacity we don't have the equipment or the staff to run at 300% on a daily basis. And this is directly, a lot of it is because Charlotte is not open, and if just 50% of those patients went to Charlotte, we would be in a much better situation.
Sure.
But it's not even anything like what we were before the Charlotte fire, because we're supposed to run at 7 patients. And then we are at complete maximum. But we ran at 20 patients. You can know that there's going to be mistakes, problems, because when you're looking at one patient, the other patient has a crisis and you miss it because there's only you. I mean, it's not only you, but there are like 4 nurses and 5 doctors in the area. If there are 20 patients and 1 nurse or 1 doctor is looking after each patient, there are still 50% of the patients without being observed if something goes wrong.
It's unthinkable, given what you've just described, that it's taken so long to get here with fixing Charlotte Maxeke, and even then, the picture as it's been presented, at least by government officials yesterday, is quite different from that which you've painted for us today. Thanks for helping us apply that perspective. Appreciate your time on the AM report this morning. Dr. Patricia Saffy is the head of the emergency unit at Helen Joseph Hospital, helping us better understand what actually happened there yesterday, at Charlotte Maxeke that is, when we're told that the emergency unit is now operational.